Would you pay $25 for a simple coffee, $16 for a kilo of chicken? How about $5,000 to rent a tiny one-bedroom apartment? Is that absurd? What if I told you that a popular car can cost $100,000? Those prices sound like a lie, don't they? But that's the reality of living in the most expensive place on Earth. In today's video, Bello Mundo takes you to explore Singapore and shows you what it's like to live in this place where everything costs, literally, a fortune. Number 1. Location and geographical data. Singapore is proof that size doesn't matter. At just 720 square kilometers, it is home to almost 6 million people and is one of the most densely populated places on the planet. Every square meter is precisely planned, reflecting the efficiency that has made this city-state a world-class example. And speaking of city-states, Singapore shares this status with places like Monaco and the Vatican. But unlike them, it combines modernity, pragmatism, and a central role in the global economy. Located in Southeast Asia, Singapore occupies a strategic position. To the north, it is separated from Malaysia by the Straits of Johor. To the south, its seas connect it to Indonesia and the Philippines. This location at the crossroads of the main trade routes has made it one of the biggest financial and commercial hubs on the planet. But with such greatness also comes cost. Singapore is constantly at the top of lists of the world's most expensive cities, rivaling giants like Hong Kong and New York. And if you're wondering what the cost is and how such a small, expensive place keeps attracting so many people, that's what we're going to explore next. Number 2. A little history. Before we dive into the surreal prices, it's worth taking a quick look at Singapore's history, not least because much of the high cost of living has its roots in how the country has developed over time. Singapore's modern history really begins in the 19th century, when Sir Stamford Raffles, a British officer, arrived on the island in 1819 and transformed it into an important trading post for the British Empire. As we said at the beginning, the strategic location between Asia and Europe meant that Singapore became a kind of maritime trade bridge, attracting traders and immigrants from all over the region. And after a brief union with Malaysia, Singapore gained its definitive independence in 1965. At the time, it was a modest territory, with few natural resources and living largely from exports and the port. However, thanks to the leadership of Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, there was heavy investment in education, infrastructure, and attracting technological and financial industries. This long-term planning has transformed the country into an economic powerhouse. Literacy rates have risen, unemployment has fallen, and the gross domestic product has soared. All this has made Singapore a very attractive place for multinational companies, international banks, and major investors. However, success has come with a serious challenge. The small territory and the scarcity of natural resources have led to a progressive rise in the price of land, real estate, and services. Add to this the strength of the local currency, the Singapore dollar, and the constant growth in demand for housing, transportation, and state-of-the-art services. The result? An escalation in prices, which has put this small nation at the top of the rankings of most expensive cities. And it's no coincidence that the Economist Intelligence Unit and various other economic institutes have repeatedly ranked it as the most expensive urban destination on the planet to live in. Now, let's take a practical look at what this means, starting with the price of owning a car. Number 3. Car ownership. Buying a car is a dream for many people, right? But in Singapore, this dream comes at a literally staggering price. And no, We're not talking about sports or luxury cars. Even basic models can cost amounts that would make anyone choke. The reason for this is a quota system put in place by the government in 1990 called the Certificate of Entitlement. And how does it work? Well, in Singapore, you can't just buy a car and drive off. First, you need to acquire this special license, which gives you the right to own and drive the vehicle for 10 years. But the COE is not something you can get easily. It is sold in an auction system and, as the supply is limited, prices skyrocket. To give you an idea, in 2024, the price of a license for small cars, Category A, like a Honda Fit or a Toyota Yaris, already exceeded $80,000. If you want something bigger, like an SUV, get ready to shell out over $100,000. And be warned, that's just the price of the compulsory license. The car itself is another story. A Toyota Corolla, which in many countries costs around $20,000, in Singapore can easily exceed $100,000 when you add up the value of the car, the COE, import taxes, and registration fees. In other words, you literally pay for almost 5 cars to have just one running. But why does the government do this? Well, there are 2 main reasons. The first is obvious: to avoid chaos on the streets. With almost 6 million people in such a small space, going free would be an invitation to monumental traffic jams, like the ones we see in cities like Jakarta or Bangkok. The second reason is environmental concern. Restricting the number of cars helps to reduce pollutant emissions, while efficient public transport covers the needs of the majority of the population. This policy ended up putting Singapore in the Guinness World Records as the most expensive place in the world to buy a car. And those who can afford to drive there, without being app drivers or entrepreneurs, are part of a very well-established financial elite. Number 4. Real estate. If you think the price of cars in Singapore is too much, wait until you hear about the real estate market. There, renting or buying a property isn't just expensive. It's a nerve-wracking experience, both for locals and outsiders. Let's start with rents. If you want to live in prime areas such as Orchard Road or Marina Bay, the city's financial center, prepare your pocket. A simple studio or one-bedroom apartment can cost between $2,000 and $4,000 a month. Now, if you're looking for a larger property with 2 or 3 bedrooms, it can cost upwards of $8,000 or even $10,000 a month in luxury condominiums. This means that, just to pay for the roof, the cost already exceeds what many people earn in a year. And if you're thinking of buying, the situation is even more impressive. In central areas, the price per square meter can exceed $25,000, putting Singapore on a par with cities like Hong Kong and London. That's right, each square meter can cost more than a popular car in many countries. But what makes prices so high? One of the reasons lies in the Housing Development Board, known by the acronym HDB, which is the government body responsible for managing public housing in Singapore. HDB apartments are designed to offer an affordable alternative to the local population, with prices subsidized by the government. It's like low-income housing, except it's not built in undervalued locations or on the outskirts. In Singapore, these properties are spread across various parts of the city and house around 80% of the residents. Sounds good, right? And indeed it is. But getting one of these apartments is not so simple. You have to take part in lotteries or face long waiting lines, especially for young couples or lower-income families. And those who can't get a place in this system end up having to resort to the private or rental market. And that's when the costs rise to exorbitant levels. Number 5. Transportation costs. Living in Singapore without a car is feasible, as public transportation, especially the MRT, Mass Rapid Transit, is clean, safe, and relatively efficient. But don't be fooled into thinking that this means cheapness. If you're going to use the bus or metro, be prepared to shell out somewhere between $1.50 and $2 per trip, depending on the distance covered. This may seem reasonable, but compared to other Asian cities, such as Kuala Lumpur, the cost is much higher. Now, if you want to save money with a monthly pass, you should know that it costs around $120 to $130. Is it expensive? For many people, yes, but it turns out to be the best option for those who use public transport on a daily basis. What about cabs or transportation apps? Well, they're not exactly cheap either. Fares are controlled and generally lower than in some Western cities, but the cost can go up a lot during peak times or in busier areas. Number 6. Food. If the idea is to save money on food, hawker centers are a great option. These popular food courts, full of stalls offering typical local food, allow you to have a meal for between $4 and $6. It's a very reasonable choice for those who don't want to spend too much. But if you want to dine in an ordinary restaurant, prepare your pocket. A main course can cost between $15 and $30. And if you're going to a more sophisticated or international restaurant, prices can easily triple, and a simple coffee can cost $20. At the supermarket, the story isn't much different. As Singapore imports most of its food, prices are high. A kilo of apples costs around $5, a liter of milk costs around $5, and chicken breasts cost over $15. Number 7. Basic bills. Monthly bills aren't very friendly either. Cell phone plans with data cost between $40 and $60 a month, while high-speed home internet, although of excellent quality, is also more expensive than in most countries. Water and electricity bills, on the other hand, can be a real scare, especially with the constant use of air conditioning. With the heat and humidity almost unbearable, air conditioning is practically essential, and a family's spending on electricity ranges from $150 to $300 a month. Number 8. Leisure. Leisure is also on the list of high expenses in Singapore. After all, what's the point of working like crazy if you can't have fun, right? But it's good to be aware because the costs can be heavy. A standard movie ticket costs between $10 and $15. And if you want a more luxurious experience, such as special sessions or VIP cinemas, the price goes even higher. If the idea is to relax in a bar or enjoy the nightlife, prepare your wallet. A beer in an average bar costs around $10, and in more sophisticated places, the price can be even higher. For those who like nightclubs or high-class bars, the cost of a night out can easily exceed the budget. And if you're looking to keep fit, you should know that the gyms there are also very expensive. The simplest ones, without many luxuries, cost between $100 and $200 a month. Premium clubs, on the other hand, which offer swimming pools, saunas, and other amenities, easily exceed $400 a month. All in all, having fun in Singapore can be amazing, but it's good to have your budget prepared. Whether it's a night out with friends or gym fees, leisure in the city-state is a luxury that requires planning. Number 9. Education. As you might expect, education also weighs heavily. In Singapore, free education is limited to primary level, and even then, only for local citizens. For foreigners or those seeking more advanced education, the costs can be quite high. Singapore's public schools are renowned for their quality, but the fees charged to non-citizens are often significantly higher. International schools, which follow British or American curricula and usually teach in English, are even more expensive. Tuition fees range from $2,000 to $3,000, and in some cases, annual fees exceed $40,000. In higher education, the story is no different. Local universities, such as the National University of Singapore, NUS, are among the best in Asia and offer courses of the highest standard. However, international students pay much higher fees than locals. Depending on the course, annual fees range from $20,000 to $30,000. Number 10. Health. The famous saying goes, "Health is what matters, the rest is of no hurry." Well, in Singapore, healthcare is also on the list of exorbitant expenses. The healthcare system there is often praised for its efficiency and the quality of its hospitals. But like everything in Singapore, this comes at a price. The model is mixed. While citizens rely on compulsory plans and subsidies, those who aren't locals or don't have robust insurance have to be prepared to pay dearly. A simple medical consultation in public clinics costs between $50 and $100. In private hospitals, on the other hand, the price is over $150. And those are just the basic prices. When it comes to additional exams, the cost can multiply rapidly. Hospitalizations and surgeries, that's another level. For more complex cases, the costs can easily reach tens of thousands of dollars, making the system unaffordable for those who are not financially prepared. On the other hand, many highly qualified expats are lucky enough to receive robust health insurance as part of their benefits packages. This eases the burden somewhat. Still, for those without such coverage, taking care of your health in Singapore can be a challenge that requires both planning and money out of pocket. Number 11. Miscellaneous services. Miscellaneous services in Singapore don't come cheap either. Beauty and beauty salons, especially in the more modern neighborhoods, charge well above the regional average. A simple haircut or beauty treatment can cost several times more than in other Southeast Asian countries. In addition, hiring nannies, cleaners, or domestic staff is considerably more expensive than in neighboring countries. Higher-income families who choose to have full-time domestic helpers have to pay salaries, government fees, and, in some cases, accommodation costs. Number 12. Attractions for expats. After hearing about Singapore's absurd prices, it's normal to think, who in their right mind would choose to live there? The answer is, a lot of people, and no wonder. First, there's safety. Singapore's streets are among the cleanest and safest in the world. The crime rate is practically non-existent, and order is a serious matter. It's the kind of place where you can walk around late at night without worry. What's more, Singapore is one of the biggest financial centers on the planet, which means incredible career opportunities. Multinational companies love to set up their regional headquarters there, creating vacancies in the areas of technology, finance, and international trade. Salaries, of course, keep pace with the high cost of living, which attracts talent from all over the world. For families, the education system is another strong point. Schools and universities are renowned for their quality and impressive results in global rankings. But if education isn't your priority, perhaps the cultural and gastronomic life is. Singapore mixes Chinese, Indian, Malaysian, and Western influences in a unique way. You can eat in hawker centers or starred restaurants, take part in cultural festivals, and enjoy events all year round. What's more, the country's strategic location is a dream for travelers. With destinations such as Thailand, Indonesia, and Vietnam just a few hours' flight away, you can make quick getaways and explore tropical paradises without too much effort. In the end, Singapore is a complete package: quality of life, opportunities, and a dash of adventure for those willing to face the costs. And so we come to the end of our journey through Singapore, the city-state that forces you to think twice before buying a car, renting an apartment, or even having a cup of coffee at the mall. But what about you? What did you think of the costs, and what surprised you the most? Let us know what you think in the comments. After all, it's not every day that you find out that just the license to buy an ordinary car can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. To those of you who have watched this far, thank you very much. We'll see you on our next Bello Mundo adventure.